Westpac's reviving the Bank of Melbourne, a brand it killed after taking it over in 1997. Analysts say it's part of a trend by the major banks to multi-brand, a move they say poses one of the biggest threats to the continued survival of regional banks, credit unions and building societies. Michael Yander reports.
While one Melbourne bank was picking up the pieces, another one was getting back on the rails.
Today we announced the launch of a new bank. It's a bank based in Victoria and it's a bank for Victorians. It is the Bank of Melbourne.
Gail Kelly was stretching the truth. The Bank of Melbourne isn't new. Instead, it's the relaunch of a brand Westpac got rid of after buying the bank in 1997. It's the beginning of a fresh assault on the Victorian market by a major bank that started life as the Bank of New South Wales. Westpac's doing it by slaying another Sydney icon. It's rebranding its 34 Victorian St George branches as Bank of Melbourne, then adding another 90 over the next few years.
And with this conversion, we'll be giving our existing St George customers everything that they've already got, the warmth and friendliness, connectedness of the St George culture, plus a whole lot more.
Financial branding expert Andrew Inwood says it's a smart move.
The Bank of Melbourne brand has been around for a long time there, and it's eponymous. People understand it. Our research, which we do every quarter, shows it attracts strongly despite the fact it hasn't been in operation for 6 or 7 years.
He says it's not the first attempt by the major banks to corner a market niche, and it definitely won't be the last.
The market started to shatter and people have started to realise that they can use different brands to attack different segments of the market.
Banking analyst Martin North says there are good reasons to adopt brands that appeal to a specific target group of consumers.
Our research shows that a consumer who's aligned to a brand that resonates with them is more than twice as likely to stay, which means that they actually are more sticky and they're more likely to put more of their products through to that same organisation.
Andrew Inwood says the major banks have been very smart in their use of subsidiary brands, making sure they don't steal customers from their flagship business.
We've been tracking, for example, the money which has been flowing to places like UBank, and not much of it's been coming from National Australia Bank. It's been coming from other places and money that they wouldn't have otherwise seen.
He says the biggest threat is to the smaller banks, credit unions and building societies.
They've been hyper-regional for a long time, but the fact that their systems in some cases aren't better, that they're slower to process and that there are other limits on the way that they behave, in fact largely the way they raise money, means that they may not be able to compete as well in these areas.
Martin North says the big banks also have the advantage of their perceived financial security, and if their micro brands prove successful, they may also take the small banks' traditional selling point of strong customer service.
Some of the credit unions and building societies and some of the smaller banks, I think, had an initial opportunity to reposition themselves as being, customer champions, but they're actually being overtaken quite quickly, I think, by what's happening from the bigger organisations.
Westpac says it'll be full steam ahead for the first Bank of Melbourne branch, which is due to open in August.